Have you ever felt a chill run down your spine while standing by the sea on a gray, misty day? Imagine that chill taking form, rising from the cold, dark waters. Today, we journey to the Orkney Islands of Scotland to uncover the terrifying legend of the Nuckelavee, a creature so dreadful that even its name was spoken in whispers. The Nuckelavee is a unique and horrifying figure in folklore, a demon born from the sea. Its very existence is tied to the harsh realities of island life, the unforgiving ocean, the blighted crops, the sudden plagues. For the people of Orkney, this wasn't just a story. It was a living fear. Let's paint a picture of this monstrosity. The Nuckelavee is often described in two forms, but its most iconic is its land-dwelling shape. It's a grotesque fusion of horse and rider, but they are one single entity. Imagine a powerful horse, but with no skin. You can see its raw red muscles and thick black blood pumping through yellow veins. Atop this horrifying steed is the torso of a man fused to its back. This rider has unnaturally long arms that can almost touch the ground, and a massive, lolling head that rolls from side to side, and its face, a single, fiery red eye that burns with malice, and a gaping mouth that exhales a foul, toxic vapor known as the mortashine. This breath is the source of its destructive power. The mortashine was believed to be a plague upon the land. It could wilt crops in an instant, cause livestock to sicken and die, and bring devastating epidemics to the human population. The Nuckelavee was the embodiment of drought and disease, a supernatural explanation for the islanders' most profound fears. When the harvest failed, or a sickness swept through a village, it wasn't just bad luck, it was the Nuckelavee, riding out from the sea to spread its venomous breath across the land. Unlike other sea spirits that might be mischievous or even helpful, the Nuckelavee is pure malevolence. It harbors an ancient burning hatred for all life on land. It has no motive other than to destroy. It doesn't bargain, it doesn't reason, it only rampages. Its very presence sours the air and brings despair. The legend of the Nuckelavee is deeply rooted in Norse mythology, blended with local Celtic traditions. Orkney was a Norse settlement for centuries, and you can see echoes of figures like the Norse water horse, the Knack, in this tale. But the Orcadians twisted it into something far more sinister, a uniquely terrifying demon born from their specific environment. The name itself, Nuckelavee, is thought to come from the Orcadian Nuckelavee, which in turn is related to the Old Norse Nikker, a water spirit. So, where did this creature come from? According to the lore, the Nuckelavee is the unholy offspring of the Myther of the Sea, a powerful and ancient ocean spirit, and a mortal man. The Myther of the Sea is the benevolent ruler of the ocean during the summer months. She keeps the destructive sea demons, including the Nuckelavee, locked away. But in the autumn, she loses her power to her rival, Terran, the spirit of winter. When Terran's violent storms rage, the Myther of the Sea can no longer contain the Nuckelavee, and it is free to come ashore and wreak havoc. This seasonal aspect of the myth tied the creature directly to the cycles of nature, making its appearances feel predictable, yet no less terrifying. The Nuckelavee's reign of terror would last through the winter until the Myther of the Sea regained her strength in the spring and could once again imprison it beneath the waves. This meant that for half the year, the people of Orkney lived under the threat of this monster. They avoided the coast after dark, especially during stormy weather. The sound of the wind howling was not just the weather, it could be the creature's unearthly screams. Now, you might be thinking, how could anyone possibly survive an encounter with such a creature? Well, the Nuckelavee had one critical weakness. It was terrified of fresh, running water. This detail is common in many folklore tales about evil spirits, but for the islanders, it was a vital piece of survival knowledge. If you were ever unfortunate enough to be pursued by the Nuckelavee, your only hope was to cross a stream or a river. The demon could not, and would not cross the flowing water. This single vulnerability offered a sliver of hope in an otherwise hopeless situation. It transformed every burn and brook on the island into a potential sanctuary. One of the most famous and detailed accounts of a Nuckelavee encounter comes from a man named Tomas, as recorded by the folklorist Walter Trail Dennison. Tomas's story became the primary source for everything we know about the creature. One night, Tomas was walking home along a lonely road by the sea. He suddenly became aware of a presence behind him. When he looked back, he saw it. The skinless horse with its grotesque rider, its single red eye glaring at him through the gloom. A wave of pure terror washed over him. The creature was monstrous, larger than any horse he had ever seen, and the smell that came from it was like rotting seaweed and burning flesh. Tomas knew what it was. He had heard the stories his whole life. He did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the heavy thud of the creature's hooves on the road behind him, getting closer and closer. He could feel its hot, putrid breath on the back of his neck. The Nuckelavee's long arms reached out, trying to snatch him. He felt its grasping fingers brush against his hat, knocking it to the ground. But Tomas was lucky. Just ahead, he saw a small channel of water where a lock flowed into the sea. He knew this was his only chance. With a final burst of energy, he leaped across the running water. He landed on the other side and collapsed. Turning to see the Nuckelavee stop dead at the water's edge, the monster let out a roar of pure fury and frustration, its one eye burning with hatred, before it finally turned and galloped back into the darkness. Tomas had survived, but he was forever marked by the encounter. He never forgot the sight, the sound, or the smell of the Nuckelavee, and his lost hat, snatched by the demon, served as proof of his terrifying tale. This story wasn't just a spooky campfire tale. It was a cautionary lesson. It reinforced the rules. Don't travel alone at night near the shore, and always know the location of the nearest stream. The fear of the Nuckelavee was so profound that it affected daily life. For instance, the burning of seaweed to create kelp was a major industry in Orkney during the 18th and 19th centuries. The smoke from the kelp kilns was said to enrage the Nuckelavee. Islanders believed the pungent smell was an insult to the demon, and it would emerge from the sea to punish them with a deadly plague. This belief was so strong that people would perform rituals and say prayers to appease the creature before lighting the fires. Even speaking its name was considered dangerous. To say Nuckelavee aloud was to risk drawing its attention. Instead, they would refer to it as the Deil of the Sea, or simply him. This act of not naming it is a powerful indicator of how real this fear was. It's a common practice across many cultures when dealing with powerful, malevolent entities. If you don't name it, it can't find you. So, what does the Nuckelavee represent? On one level, it's a personification of the dangers of the sea and the fragility of life on a remote island. Plagues, famines, and droughts were very real threats, and in a time before modern science, it was natural to create a supernatural cause for such suffering. The Nuckelavee was the face they gave to their misfortune. But it goes deeper than that. The creature's horrific, skinless appearance speaks to themes of rawness, vulnerability, and pain. It's a body turned inside out, a visual representation of agony. Its hatred for life on land could be seen as a metaphor for the eternal conflict between the wild, untamable sea and the cultivated, ordered world of humanity. Today, of course, we know that diseases are caused by germs, not by the breath of a sea demon, but the legend of the Nuckelavee endures. It's a chilling reminder of a time when the world was filled with mystery and terror. When the line between the natural and the supernatural was blurred. It's a testament to the human imagination, its ability to create monsters that perfectly embody our deepest fears. The Nuckelavee isn't just a monster. It's a piece of cultural history, a dark jewel from the treasure chest of Scottish folklore. The next time you find yourself near the cold, gray sea, listen closely to the waves and the wind. You probably won't see a skinless horse demon rising from the depths, but for a moment, you might understand the shiver of fear that the people of Orkney felt as they huddled in their homes, praying for the spring to come and lock the terrifying Nuckelavee away once more. Thank you so much for joining me on this dive into one of the most terrifying legends from the British Isles. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark corners of folklore, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. Let me know in the comments what other myths and legends you'd like me to explore. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe. Warning: some of the following accounts may cause unease, nausea, or trembling. This is an archival deep dive into the collective trauma of the Orkney archipelago. Proceed only if you are prepared for the darkness. In the remote islands of the Orkney archipelago, off the northern coast of Scotland, history is not written merely in books. It is etched into the very soil, the rocks, and the peat bogs that have swallowed both men and memories for centuries. Here, the wind carries more than the scent of salt and seaweed. It carries whispers. The people of Orkney have long held a unique relationship with the Nuckelavee, a relationship defined not by curiosity, but by a profound generational reverence and a fear they have reserved for the sea itself, the same sea that provides their livelihood and in moments of wrath claims their lives. To understand the Nuckelavee, one must move past the concept of a monster as a mere fairy tale. To the people of these islands, the Nuckelavee is an event. It is a shift in the atmosphere. It is the moment the world goes wrong. The oral tradition of dread for centuries. The elderly residents of the Outer Isles have recounted incidents from their youth stories passed down with such granular detail that they ceased to be folklore and became, instead, oral testimonies. They speak of times when the wind would carry a stench so overpowering that cattle would panic, ripping through fences in a blind frenzy, while children were hurried indoors and instructed to bolt the doors, shutter the windows, and burn candles until the air cleared. These stories are rarely recounted with dramatic flair. There is a somber, pragmatic tone to them, as if the teller is reporting a particularly bad storm or a dangerous tide. They are cautionary tales, designed to instill a respect for the invisible boundaries of their world. The Orkney landscape is a series of stark, windswept plains and treacherous coastlines. It is a place of transition, where the solid, reliable earth meets the chaotic, indifferent Atlantic. This geography is the stage upon which these testimonies take place. When you look at a map of these islands, you see how much of the arable land is hugged by the coastline. There is no inland refuge. There is only the edge, and it is at this edge that the Nuckelavee has been sighted, again and again, across centuries. Anatomy of an encounter. The witness accounts, the testimonies gathered by folklorists and local historians, reveal a horrifying consistency. It is as if the creature, despite its monstrous nature, adheres to a specific, almost predictable pattern of behavior. Consider the account from the mid-1700s, preserved in the handwritten logs of a local parish scribe. It details an event involving a woman who was gathering seaweed along the shore, a common task for fertilizer in those barren times. The scribe records that she felt a sudden, unnatural heat blooming behind her, a heat that felt out of place in the biting wind of a northern October. When she turned, she did not see a natural beast. She saw a towering, skinless amalgamation of horse and man. Its muscles glistening wetly, its human face grinning with an expression that was at once alien and terrifyingly sentient. She didn't stay to observe it further. She ran, but upon her return to the village, the news was already waiting. Her neighbor's livestock, which had been perfectly healthy an hour prior, had perished overnight. This detail, the sudden heat, is a recurring motif. Contemporary paranormal researchers who have interviewed the descendants of such witnesses note that this heat is often described as suffocating, a feverish pressure that spikes the air temperature as if a furnace had been opened in an ice field. Then, there is the chilling report from the 1800s involving a shepherd. This man was not a superstitious fool. He was a hard-working, practical person whose life was defined by the health of his herd. He swore, under oath to his family and his peers, that he saw the creature feeding upon a cow with unnatural precision. He described the creature's arms-long, sinewy appendages that looked human in structure, but possessed a reach and a dexterity that felt wrong. He claimed that the Nuckelavee tore the flesh away without ripping the hide, as if the skin of the animal had simply dissolved. When he raised the alarm, the villagers rushed to the site. they found the entire herd gone. There was no blood on the heather, no signs of a struggle. Instead, they found deep, massive hoofprints in the sand, leading straight into the dark Atlantic, as if the creature had simply stepped off the edge of the world and into the depths, returning to the abyss after its grisly silent feast. The sensory assault, the Nuckelavee, does not merely haunt the imagination. It imposes itself upon the senses. Witnesses consistently report that its arrival is preceded by a stench of rotting flesh and brine. This is not the smell of a dead animal. It is a complex, chemical-like decay that causes nausea and involuntary tears. Perhaps most disturbing are the auditory reports. There are tales of echoes that do not match the sound of the creature's movement to dissonant, guttural neigh that sounds almost human in its timing. This sound seems to resonate across the hills and cliffs, vibrating in the chests of those who hear it. In some accounts, fishermen attempting to flee to their boats describe seeing the Nuckelavee galloping across shallow waters. They say it leaves no wake. It moves faster than any horse could naturally traverse its hooves, striking the wet sand without the sound of impact, while the human torso atop its back seems to twist and track their movement, watching them with eyes that burn like hot coals. Modern visitors to the islands sometimes brush these accounts off as the result of a harsh, lonely environment creating hallucinations. They speak of infrasound, low-frequency waves generated by the wind hitting the cliffs, which are known to cause feelings of dread, nausea, and the sensation of being watched. Yet, even modern hikers have reported moments of absolute, inexplicable unease. Walking the peat bogs near the coastal cliffs, they sense a sudden warmth or hear a faint, unplaceable noise, only to turn and see a vague, reddish distortion in the fog that vanishes before the eyes can focus. The symbolism of the scourge, anthropologists and folklorists have long debated the nature of the Nuckelavee. Many suggest that it is a symbolic personification of the plagues, crop failures, and livestock diseases that have decimated island communities throughout history. In a time before the germ theory of disease, before we understood how blight spread through a field of barley, or how a virus could wipe out a herd of cattle, the Nuckelavee served as a concrete entity to blame. If a plague arrived, it was not the result of bad luck or invisible microscopic threats. It was the Nuckelavee, walking the fields at night, dripping its corrosive venom onto the crops and the grass. However, the locals reject the idea of metaphor. They insist that their ancestors were not stupid. They knew the difference between a disease and a demon. They knew that a blight in the barley took days or weeks to spread, whereas the Nuckelavee's handiwork was instantaneous. They insist that this is something that moved, breathed, and watched them with an intelligence and malevolence that goes beyond the natural order. The fear is so deeply ingrained that even today, some small farms on the northern reaches of Orkney have abandoned certain grazing areas entirely. They claim that even though nothing can be seen during the day, at night, the presence remains. They call it a relentless presence of pure terror. They do not need to see it to know it is there. The silence of the birds, the unnatural stillness of the wind, and the sudden sharp drop in temperature are enough to keep them away. The final warning, these testimonies do more than simply tell a story. They function as a cultural defense mechanism. They transmit a warning across generations. They instruct children, travelers, and outsiders to respect the natural forces of the islands and to never ignore the inexplicable. They teach us that the world is not entirely ours. We live on the surface of an earth that contains depths we do not understand. We occupy the edges of an ocean that is vast, dark, and utterly indifferent to our existence. To acknowledge the Nuckelavee is to acknowledge that there are forces in this world that cannot be reasoned with. You cannot negotiate with a storm. You cannot bargain with a plague, and you certainly cannot reason with a creature that represents the raw, unbridled malice of the sea. The stories are fading, as all oral histories do, eroded by the tide of modernity and the bright lights of our interconnected world. But every now and then, when the mist rolls in, when the wind dies down, and the ocean flattens into that sheet of black glass, the fear returns. It is a reminder that we are only visitors here, living on thin, fragile land, surrounded by an immense, breathing ocean. If you find yourself on those remote, windswept cliffs, and you feel that sudden, inexplicable heat, or if the air begins to smell of rot and sulfur, do not wait to see what is coming through the fog. Do not search for the source of the sound. Respect the ancient warning, leave the shoreline to the sea, and return to the safety of the interior. Because in the forgotten hours of the night, when humans feel the safest, the Nuckelavee is still watching. It is waiting just beyond the periphery, ready to manifest its wrath, ready to claim what it believes belongs to the depths. And perhaps the most terrifying thought of all is that the creature does not need us to believe in it to exist. It has been walking the edges of the Atlantic since before we arrived, and it will be walking them long after we have forgotten its name. The sea keeps its own time, and the Nuckelavee is patient. It is always waiting. Have you ever stared out at the sea on a gray, misty day and felt a strange sense of unease, as if something ancient and malevolent is watching you from beneath the waves? For the people of the Orkney Islands, north of Scotland, this wasn't just a feeling. It was a terrifying reality, embodied by a creature known as the Nuckelavee. This isn't your typical sea monster. The Nuckelavee is a thing of pure nightmare, a demon born from the darkest depths of Orcadian folklore. Its name is believed to derive from the Orcadian dialect, meaning devil of the sea, and when you hear what it looks like, you'll understand why. Imagine a creature that is part man, part horse, but horribly fused together. The torso of a man, with arms so long they can scrape the ground, grows out of the back of a horse-like body. But this is no noble steed. It has a single, massive, fiery red eye that burns like a demonic furnace. Its head is huge, lolling from side to side as it moves. But the most grotesque feature of all, the Nuckelavee has no skin. That's right. Its entire body is a raw, exposed mass of pulsating yellow veins, thick black blood, and powerful twitching muscles. You can see every sinew, every tendon, as it moves. And from its gaping mouth, it exhales a foul, toxic vapor known as the mortashine. This breath is a plague, capable of wilting crops, sickening livestock, and bringing famine and death to the islands. The Nuckelavee is an amphibious horror, a creature of both land and sea. In the summer months, it was believed to be confined to the depths of the ocean by the Myther, the sea, an ancient and benevolent spirit of Orcadian mythology. But as the winter storms rolled in, the Myther's control would weaken, and the Nuckelavee was free to terrorize the land. Its hatred for all living things was absolute. It would rampage across the islands, its single eye scanning for victims. The sound of its approach was said to be a dreadful mix of snorting, hissing, and the wet, slapping sound of its raw flesh moving. Islanders lived in constant fear, avoiding the coastlines after dark, especially near sources of fresh water, which it seemed unable to cross. This weakness, the fear of running fresh water, is a common theme in Celtic folklore, a kind of purifying barrier against evil. The most famous, and frankly most terrifying, account of an encounter with the Nuckelavee comes from a man named. The story was recorded by a 19th century folklorist named Walter Traill Denison, who claimed to have heard it directly from Tamas himself. One night, Tamas was walking home along a lonely road near the sea. It was a dark, eerie evening. Suddenly, he heard a sound behind him. He looked back and saw a monstrous shape moving towards him at an alarming speed. It was the Nuckelavee. Paralyzed with fear, Tamas knew he couldn't outrun it. He remembered the old tales, the one weakness of the beast. Ahead of him, the road crossed a small stream of fresh water, a burn. It was his only chance. He ran for his life, the creature's hot, putrid breath on his neck. Its long arms reached out, trying to grab him. Just as he leaped across the stream, the Nuckelavee's fingers brushed against his bonnet, knocking it to the ground. Tamas didn't dare look back. He ran all the way home, collapsing in terror. He had escaped, but just barely. The next morning, when he dared to venture out, he found his bonnet lying on the bank of the stream. The Nuckelavee, unable to cross the running water, had been forced to abandon its prize. Tama's never walked that road at night again. This story isn't just a spooky tale. It's a survival guide passed down through generations. It reinforces the creature's nature, its speed, its malevolence, and the one crucial way to escape it. So where did such a horrific idea come from? Folklorists have a few theories. The Nuckelavee's design seems to be a twisted fusion of different mythological beings. Its horse-like form connects it to the Kelpie, a malevolent water horse from Scottish folklore. Its human-like torso might link it to mermen or other sea spirits. But the skinless aspect is what truly sets it apart. Some scholars believe the imagery of the flayed creature might be a folk memory of something very real and gruesome. Perhaps the sight of bodies washed ashore after a shipwreck, decomposed by the sea, inspired this horrific detail. The skinless appearance could also be a metaphor for raw, untamed nature, the brutal power of the ocean, stripped of any beauty or romance. The Nuckelavee's association with plague and famine is also significant. For island communities dependent on farming and fishing, a bad harvest or a poor fishing season could mean starvation. It was easier to personify this misfortune as a single, malevolent entity. The Nuckelavee became a scapegoat for the unpredictable and often cruel forces of nature. The mortician breath that wilts crops is a clear personification of blight and disease. There are other lesser-known aspects to its legend. It was said to have a particular hatred for the smell of burning seaweed. In Orkney, seaweed was burned to create kelp ash, which was a vital component of the local economy for a time. Some tales suggest that the acrid smoke from this process enraged the Nuckelavee, and the creature's rampages were a form of supernatural revenge against this industry. This ties the monster directly to human activity and its impact on the natural world. The Nuckelavee represents a deep, primal fear of the sea. For the Orcadians, the sea was both a source of life and a source of death. It provided food and trade routes, but it also brought devastating storms, isolation, and the unknown. The Nuckelavee is the ultimate embodiment of the sea's dark side, its rage, its unpredictability, its power to consume and destroy. Unlike other mythical creatures, there's nothing romantic or redeemable about the Nuckelavee. It's not a misunderstood beast, or a creature you can bargain with. It is pure, concentrated evil. Its only purpose is to cause suffering and death. This makes it one of the most genuinely frightening monsters in all of world mythology. Even today, its legend endures. While people in Orkney no longer live in daily fear of a skinless horse demon, the story of the Nuckelavee is a powerful part of their cultural heritage. It's a chilling reminder of a time when the world felt much bigger, much wilder, and when the line between the natural and the supernatural was terrifyingly thin. So the next time you're near the coast on a dark and stormy night, and you hear a strange sound carried on the wind, just hope it's the cry of a gull, and if you have to walk home, maybe stick to a path that crosses a nice, wide stream of fresh, running water. You never know what might be coming out of the sea. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of Scotland's most terrifying legends. If you enjoy exploring the dark corners of folklore, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more monstrous tales. See you next time. From the windswept Orkney Islands, north of the Scottish mainland, comes a tale so terrifying it has haunted generations. A creature born of nightmare, a fusion of horse and rider, with no skin to cover its pulsating black blood, yellow veins, and raw twitching muscles. This is the story of the Nuckelavee, the devil of the sea. Imagine the salty air turning foul, the smell of burning seaweed, and death filling your lungs. Imagine the sound of hooves, not on solid ground, but galloping through the very waves, bringing plague and famine with its every breath. This isn't just a monster from a storybook. For the people of Orkney, it was a very real and present danger, a malevolent force of nature that ruled the winter seas. The Nuckelavee's name is thought to derive from Nuckelavee, a term of Norse origin meaning devil of the sea. Its mythology is a chilling blend of Celtic and Norse folklore, a testament to the harsh, unforgiving environment of the Northern Isles. It's a creature of two worlds, but welcome in neither. In the summer, it's confined to the depths of the ocean by Mither, the sea, an ancient and powerful spirit. But when winter's grip tightens, the Nuckelavee is unleashed upon the land, its single, fiery eye searching for victims. Its form is the stuff of pure body horror. The main torso of a man, grotesque and skinless, sprouts directly from the back of an equine beast. This horse-like body is just as monstrous, with a gaping mouth that exhales a venomous vapor known as the mortashine. This toxic breath could wilt crops, sicken livestock, and bring fatal diseases to any human unfortunate enough to inhale it. The creature's long, sinewy arms, tipped with claw-like fingers, could reach the ground from its saddle, ready to snatch unsuspecting islanders. Unlike many mythological beasts, the Nuckelavee had one specific, crucial weakness: a deep, instinctual fear of fresh running water. This was the islanders' only defense. If you were pursued by this demon, your only hope was to cross a stream or a river. The creature could not, and would not, follow. This detail wasn't just a convenient plot device. It shaped the very geography of fear on the islands. Every burn and every lock became a potential sanctuary, a border between life and a horrific death. Historical accounts, though anecdotal, are disturbingly consistent. The most famous telling comes from an Orcadian folklorist named Walter Traill Denison, who in 1891 documented the encounter of a man named As Tamas walked home one night near a loch, he saw a colossal shape moving towards him. He immediately recognized the stench and the horrifying form of the Nuckelavee. Terror spurred him on as he ran for his life, the monster's grasping hands just inches away. He reached the channel of fresh water that ran from the loch to the sea and leaped across. He was safe, but not unscathed. As he jumped, the Nuckelavee's fingers grazed his cap, which fell into the water. Tamas didn't dare look back. He ran all the way home, collapsing in terror. He had survived an encounter with the devil itself. Stories like Tamas's were not just meant to scare children. They served as cautionary tales, reinforcing the community's rules and beliefs. They explained the unexplainable, sudden blights, mysterious illnesses, and the ever-present dangers of the sea. The Nuckelavee embodied the islanders' deepest anxieties about their precarious existence. A life lived on the edge, at the mercy of the powerful, unpredictable forces of nature. Farmers wouldn't dare burn seaweed to create kelp during the months the Nuckelavee was said to roam, for fear the foul smoke would enrage it and invite its wrath. So, is the Nuckelavee merely a relic of a superstitious past? A monster confined to the dusty pages of folklore? Perhaps not. Even in the modern era, strange sightings and unsettling experiences are reported in and around the Orkney Islands. While they lack the dramatic flair of Tomas's escape, the stories persist. Fishermen speak of unnerving shapes seen in the fog, strange sounds carried on the wind over the water, and an overwhelming sense of being watched from the depths. A tourist in the late 20th century reported seeing a large, dark figure on a remote beach at twilight. Something that moved in a disturbingly unnatural way before vanishing into the surf. These modern accounts are often dismissed as misidentification, a seal, a piece of driftwood, a trick of the light, and perhaps they are. But the pattern is intriguing. The descriptions, though vague, often echo elements of the original legend. A large, unsettling presence near the water, a feeling of malevolence, and an association with bad weather or misfortune. Could these be mere echoes of a powerful legend, our minds filling in the blanks with ancient fears? Or is it possible that the story of the Nuckelavee originated from something real? Some theories suggest the legend could be a distorted memory of encounters with unfamiliar creatures, like walruses or large seals, their appearance twisted by fear and time. Others point to the grim reality of life in the past. The sight of a decaying animal carcass washed ashore, perhaps tangled with seaweed, could easily fuel the imagination of a frightened, superstitious populace. The plague-bringing aspect could be a folk explanation for very real epidemics that swept through the isolated island communities with devastating effect. The psychological impact of such a legend is profound and lasting. For those who claim to have had an encounter, the experience is life-altering. Witnesses often speak of a deep, primal fear that lingers long after the event. They describe a sense of dread, a feeling of being exposed to something ancient and utterly hostile to human life. This isn't just seeing a strange animal. It's a confrontation with what feels like a supernatural entity. Many are reluctant to speak about their experiences for fear of ridicule. Yet the memory haunts them, a dark shadow at the edge of their perception. This psychological trauma, whether from a real encounter or a powerful trick of the mind, is a testament to the Nuckelavee's enduring power. The legend functions as a powerful cultural anchor. It connects modern Orcadians to their ancestors, to the struggles and fears that shaped their identity. It's a story that's woven into the landscape itself. Every misty shoreline, every remote loch, every winter storm holds the potential for an encounter. The Nuckelavee is more than a monster. It's the spirit of the harsh Orcadian environment, a personification of the sea's cruel and unpredictable nature. It reminds us that even in our modern technological world, there are still dark corners where ancient terrors dwell, waiting for the tide to turn. So the next time you find yourself on a lonely coast, with the wind howling and the waves crashing against the rocks, listen closely. If the air grows heavy with the smell of decay, and the sound you hear isn't just the wind, but something that sounds like galloping hooves, run and pray there's a stream nearby. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of darkness. If you found this exploration of myth and mystery compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the world's most terrifying legends. Stay curious and stay safe. Listen closely. If you're hearing this, the wind is likely howling against your own walls. If you hear hooves tonight clacking against stone, splashing through puddles, do not assume it's your imagination. For your own sake, do not look out the window, and please, do not look for the source. We have spent this series tracing the damp, salt-crusted edges of the map. We have walked the shoreline of the Orkney archipelago, where the Atlantic beats against the cliffs like a hammer on an anvil. We have heard the testimonies of fishermen who have seen things that defy biology. We have listened to the warnings of the elders, and we have analyzed the wreckage left in the wake of something that, by all rights, should not exist. But now, we must ask the question that haunts every investigator of the unknown. What is the Nuckelavee? Is it a demon, a cultural metaphor, a shared hallucination passed down through generations, like an heirloom of fear? Psychologists and skeptics are quick to offer comfort. They argue that extreme environments create extreme myths. They tell us that isolation intensifies fear, that the relentless, crushing storms of northern Scotland create a psychological need for embodiment. They say, you need a monster because you cannot fight the storm, and you cannot bargain with a plague. They claim that by giving the disaster a horse's face, a man's torso, a burning eye, the villagers of the past were reclaiming a bit of control. If it's a monster, you can build a wall, you can dig a stream, you can pray. But that explanation, as logical and soothing as it sounds, ignores one critical, agonizing factor: consistency, the problem of uniformity. If the Nuckelavee were merely a product of the human imagination, a ghost story, dreamt up by cold, hungry people, to explain the inexplicable, it would change, it would evolve, it would shift to reflect the changing anxieties of the centuries. A ghost story from the 18th century should look different from a terrifying account in the 21st century. The details should blur, the lore should dilute. But across 300 years, across different social classes, across disparate villages that had no means of communication, the creature's description remains eerily, disturbingly stable. Skinless, always skinless, horse-bodied, always a grotesque amalgamation, human torso attached to the spine, always fused, always parasitic, burning eyes, always filled with focused, sentient hatred, the stench, always the same suffocating cocktail of sulfur, brine, and rot. Myths evolve, they transform, yet the Nuckelavee's form has remained frozen in time, like a specimen preserved in amber. This stability suggests it is not a story we invented. It is a story that was given to us. Some folklorists have proposed that the creature represents the fear of industrial pollution. In the 18th and 19th centuries, as early industry began to taint the waters, and the runoff affected livestock, people saw the pollution as a physical beast. They point to its corrosive venom as an allegory for toxic waste. Others speculate it embodies the memory of the Black Death, or later plagues a pestilence on horseback. But these theories fail when you examine the modern testimonies. I have spoken to witnesses, people who had no prior knowledge of Scottish folklore. People who grew up in suburban comfort who have described the exact same creature after seeing it on a desolate beach at 3 in the morning. They didn't know the word Nuckelavee. They didn't know the freshwater weakness. And yet, they described the raw, red muscle, the fused torso, and the impossible speed. They didn't see a metaphor. They saw a predator. Here is the most unsettling possibility. Perhaps the Nuckelavee is not a ghost. It is not a spirit in the traditional sense, and it is certainly not a demon summoned from hell. It is something older, something elemental. In many ancient maritime cultures, the ocean is viewed not merely as a body of water, but as a boundary between worlds, a threshold. We treat the sea as a resource, a highway for shipping, a source of food, a backdrop for vacation photographs. We have domesticated the coast, but there is a part of the ocean that resists this. There are depths we have never mapped, trenches that have never felt the light of the sun, and currents that operate on a physics we do not fully grasp. If something were to exist beyond that threshold, an entity that dwells in the crushing pressure of the deep, it would not look like us. It would not behave like a terrestrial animal. If such an entity were to manifest physically during a moment of environmental chaos, when the storm surge rises, when the pressure drops, when the barrier between the deep sea and the shore wears thin, it would appear monstrous. It would appear incomplete. The Nuckelavee is a distortion. It is part animal, part human, part abyss. It is what happens when the logic of the deep ocean is forced to survive on the surface of the earth. It is a rupture point. The Nuckelavee emerges when conditions align: violent storms, high tides, profound isolation, and intense human fear. It acts as a siphon, drawing energy from the chaos of the storm, and if that is true, then it has not vanished. It is simply dormant. It is waiting. It is patient. It is biding its time until the next perfect storm, the next moment of human vulnerability, allows it to cross back over the threshold. To truly understand this, we must look at the geography of the Orkney Islands, and by extension, all coastal regions where the Nuckelavee is feared. These are places of transition. For the modern human, this fear is difficult to articulate, because we have built our lives around the denial of nature's indifference. We have GPS to tell us where we are. We have satellite weather tracking to tell us when a storm is coming. We have modern medicine to fix disease. We have systematically removed the unknown from our lives. But the Nuckelavee defies this. It is a reminder that we are only visitors here. We live on a thin, fragile crust of rock, surrounded by an immense, breathing ocean that does not know our names and does not care about our survival. The people of Orkney still respect the sea. They do not just visit the beach. They observe the tide. They watch the birds. They track the wind. And some, despite the laughter of outsiders, still refuse to walk near the marshlands alone after dark. They know something that the rest of the world has forgotten. Nature does not need permission to destroy. Why does the hair stand up on the back of your neck when you hear these stories? Why does the rational mind recoil, even while the imagination is captivated? It is because, deep in your human instinct, there remains a primal recognition. You have a prey response that predates your language, your technology, and your civilization. There is a part of your brain that remembers when you were not the master of the planet, but a creature scurrying in the dark, watching the water, waiting to be hunted. That instinct recognizes the Nuckelavee. It recognizes the silhouette. It recognizes the smell. It recognizes the wrongness of the creature's anatomy, the way the human torso does unsit on the horse, but grows out of it. It triggers a fear that is not intellectual, but visceral. It is the fear of being hunted by something stronger, faster, and utterly merciless. Something that gallops across shallow water without leaving a ripple. Something with no skin to hide its intentions. Something that does not belong entirely to this world. If you are a skeptic, I invite you to go to the coast tonight. Find a secluded stretch of beach. Stand where the water meets the land. Wait for the wind to die. Wait for the silence to become so heavy it presses against your eardrums. Wait for the smell of rotting brine and sulfur to rise from the sand. And when you feel the temperature spike, when the air around you suddenly turns humid and feverish, as if something is breathing just inches from your neck, do not wait to see what is coming. Do not search for the source of the sound. Do not assume it is the wind or the waves, because whether it is myth, monster, or elemental force, the Nuckelavee is the ultimate test of your survival instinct. The skeptics hesitate because, deep down, they know they are not alone. They know that the dark is not empty. This was episode 9 of Tales of the Dark. We have opened the book of the abyss, and we have read the pages that were meant to remain sealed. But remember, the sea does not close the book just because we have stopped reading. The tides will continue to rise. The storms will continue to roll in. And out there, in the forgotten hours of the night, something is walking the shoreline. Something is watching. Listen closely tonight. If the wind howls against your glass, if the floorboards creak, if the air in your room suddenly grows warm and metallic, do not look behind you. Because sometimes, the sea gives back what it takes, and it is rarely what you expect. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story gives you a nightmare. And remember, the ocean has a memory, and it is a long, cold, and hungry one.